As I've been reviewing the Justice League episodes from the early 2000s, there's something that sticks out to me, especially in this episode, is that Batman really doesn't need the Justice League, nor does Lex need the Legion of Doom. Stay tuned. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. So glad to see you once again. And today we're talking about the episode Injustice of the Justice League. Now I do have to say, I took sort of an impromptu break there, but I'm back now. And ironically enough, this episode also had this weird hiatus from the previous episode. The last episode I think was in April. And then these episodes didn't begin until September, which sort of feels like, you know, the break between seasons, but it wasn't. This is still technically part of the first season. And truly doesn't feel like it was that many episodes before we took this kind of summer break. But this episode does sort of introduce the Legion of Doom, which is one of my big excitements and disappointments. But before we get into that, I'm going to give you a 90-second rundown of everything that happens in these two episodes before the timer goes off and the bomb explodes. Let's see if I can do it. We start off with a cold open of Lex getting the best of Superman with some kryptonite, and he's down for the count, but then it turns out it is Martian Manhunter. And then we discover that Lex is ill, and he has some sort of poisoning, cancerous poisoning from the kryptonite that he's carried around with him so long. And then he takes that, but he gets put in jail, and there's no cure for this, but he indulges the humanite to be able to help him break out, and he joins up with some other members and forms kind of a pseudo Legion of Doom, and then their plot is to destroy Superman and the Justice League. They go to the mall, they fight them, they don't win, but they do injure Batman, and then the Joker comes in and says, hey, I know how to stop Batman, and he hits him over the head with a bunch of rocks, I guess. And then they capture Batman, they get his utility belt, and the plan is to use the utility belt to get the garage door opener to be able to get into the Legion, the Watchtower. When they go up to the Watchtower, they plant a bomb there, and then Batman's still out of commission, and then they're searching around, they try to find the bomb, and Lex is watching this, and then they find it, Flash finds it with the help of Green Lantern, they throw it out the airlock, I guess, and then it blows up. Lex watches that, oh no, it didn't quite blow up, and then he gets a super suit that he puts on to be able to survive and extra strong. Meanwhile, Batman is working his magic with all the different people and gets them to Cheetah to betray her team, and he escapes with a little bit of water, and then he stops him, and then I started a lot of saying. So once he stops them, he gets out. The rest of the Justice League come in, and they stop them all. There's kind of an implosion of the Legion of Doom, and then they go off and they go back to the Watchtower, and all is well. There's something else that happens there at the end, but I just can't quite remember. But I think that's generally the gist of it. This has been one of the better cold opens. I like a little mystery with that. We see Superman on his back, Lex over top of him with the kryptonite. It was really cool, and you thought, oh wow, this is it. This is how Lex gets the best of Superman. And then we discover, obviously, that it's Martian Manhunter, John Jones, and then we take it off on this little chase, and then we discover that Lex is sick. All of that happens before the opening credits. That's how these cold opens should really exist. But I do have to say, all of that kind of setup of Lex being sick and being poisoned by the kryptonite really doesn't get fleshed out too much. But the setup does create, I guess, sort of a motivation for him to need to break out of prison, getting the humanite to join forces with him, and to ultimately, as his dying wish. I don't know if that's really established, but his wish of, hey, I want to
destroy Superman and the Justice League.
All of that, I guess, is the motivation of him being sick. But this grouping was much needed. And I think that we've been seeing these episodes with Justice League, and they have these threats, and they have these different elements that they're trying to battle. And we kind of did individual stories with each of the heroes. And that's all been well and good. But now we finally have what could be and has the potential of being a really formidable threat to the Justice League. The Legion of Doom, for lack of a better term. They don't really call themselves that. That does have the feel of what that is, harking back to the Super Friends days. And I think it's a great setup, But again, I wish that they would have pushed it a little bit further. A lot of the other villains seem to be motivated just by Lex's money, which he seems apprehensive about getting. Although he's gonna die, so I don't know what the point of that is.
But it will cost extra.
We set up the Legion of Doom. I just wish they would have done more with that. So this does reunite Lex Luthor and the Joker, which we saw in, I think it was a Superman, the animated series. I'll put a link up here to that. But that was, so they have a little bit of a history together, and their dynamic and their pairing is kind of fun.
You need me.
Like I need skin rash.
Lex hires all these villains, kind of no-name villains or second-rate villains that are really just, what do you call it? They're just elevated thugs and just motivated by money.
Who do you think you are?
And he obviously knows the Joker, but deliberately does not ask him to be part of this initially, and Joker sort of works his way in. However, all the Joker really contributes is hitting Batman in the head with a bag of rocks. It's a little weak for the Joker. While we're talking about the Joker, I do want to say, it is nice seeing Mark Hamill back as the Joker. This has now been 10 years since we first saw the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, since Mark Hamill debuted as the Joker. His voice has aged a little bit. This is definitely a different take on the Joker. There's definitely a little bit of age, and it's definitely a little more reserved, but it is nice seeing the Joker. And also, Mark Hamill speaks for Solomon Grundy, so that's kind of cool. There's some confusions with the plot. I feel like they're touching on several kind of motivators or several points within this story. Kind of starts off with this plot around Lex Luthor becoming ill and there's no help, which again, I think they kind of drop that as they get into the second part, other than he gets his suit, which again, I wish he was in the suit longer. Then that becomes the motive to, let's destroy Superman and the Justice League. Lex ends up getting partnered with the Joker, who helps capture Batman, who's really the main threat here. Then there's, now let's destroy the Watchtower, which I guess, Superman would be part of that. But again, planting a bomb on the Watchtower would not destroy Superman, and probably not many of the villains, that or many of the heroes. Green Lantern could form a bubble. Flash would probably die from an explosion out in space. Martian Manhunter, he could just phase right through that. Wonder Woman, super strong, can fly in space. So I'm like, the bomb really isn't an accurate. But so I'm excited that they have the Legion of Doom, or they're introducing the Legion of Doom, but sort of disappointed in how they ultimately use them. Which brings me to the main point here is the Justice League really needs Batman more than Batman needs the Justice League.
You don't need to prove yourself. You're a valued member of this team, and we're only trying to...
I'm taking the shuttle.
He ends up getting hurt, but uses that to his advantage to infiltrate the bad guys. And while he's there, he's able to use his superpower, I would say, to work the angles of the different villains, pitting them against each other, seducing Cheetah, and ultimately escapes with a mouthful of water. I mean, that's Batman for you.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, Superman and Flash are trying to interrogate Copperhead, and even make the comment that, where's Batman when you need him, because we don't know how to do this.
How does Batman do it?
So you have Batman locked up for a good part of the episodes, and is still integral to the plot. And it just amazes me that the initial plan for the Justice League show was not to have Batman in it as much, because he had his own series, a couple of series, and that sort of fell by the wayside because they really need Batman.
That's what you think.
And I would say the same could be said about Lex and the Legion of Doom type people. They're just there for the money.
You get what you pay for, Luthor.
And it's really only through Lex that they're able to motivate this. So a big chunk of the plot is them getting the utility belt from Batman, which again was because of the Joker, but all he did was hit him with a bunch of bricks. Any one of them could have done that.
Really? I must be falling into a rut.
And it's ultimately Lex that cracks the code to get into the utility belt, and it's him that comes up with the plan. And I think he could have just went out on the street and hired any run-of-the-day thugs.
Common criminals. Is this what I've been reduced to?
to do these sort of things that really don't capitalize on the super villainness of any of these characters, and it's really ultimately him. I would say Humanite helps out quite a bit, and ultimately Humanite helps design the suit, it seems. But other than that, this really could have been an episode just between Lex and Batman, and I think could have been just as good.
What was I thinking?
I do have to say, there towards the end when they're infiltrating I think it's a mall. I don't know what else it would be. There's a nice little Wonder Twins cameo, again harkening back to the Super Friends that in statue form that gets busted up, which is kind of cool. And I think accurately so did not make the Wonder Twins part of this version of Justice League, because let's face it, they're just kind of a joke.
Get out of here.
Now I want to talk a little bit more about Joker, because this is the first appearance of Joker within the Justice League. And a lot of people say a lot about his redesign visually, which I think fits within this overall design of the new Justice League and the kind of streamlined animation and much more in tone with the early 2000s and the type of shows that they were doing at that time. Personally, I'm not a fan of the new Joker design, but I think more than that, his character is quite a bit different. He's written different. And like I mentioned before, the way that Mark Hamill plays him is a little bit different.
What are you looking for? Bat car keys? Bat breath mints?
There's some spots there at the end where Joker's at the mall and he's getting captured and all that. The animation of him, just the way that he moves, is very Looney Tunes. It's almost silly. He's got these kind of broad expressions and morphs his head in these ways, and it's just sort of odd. And the role that he plays within the story of the Legion of Doom, where he's just like wheeling around on the chair and harassing, Lex while he's trying to work, is just sort of silly. He's almost just an annoying neighbor character, annoying, just side character that plays in there. So, again, he's a psychotic threat in the early original Batman the Animated Series, and here he's just sort of a goofball and sort of just mischievous than psychotic.
Listen to someone who knows.
So I think too much weight gets put on his visual redesign, and not enough is said about his kind of personality design.
Don't make me laugh.
It's no joke.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, it falls number 7 on my list.
Oh, Lexi, I'm hurt.
Kind of far down on the list because as I started seeing the Legion of Doom, I started expecting more and then was sort of disappointed as it went. But it's one of my common themes here is that I don't know if it needed to be a two-parter. It doesn't feel like it belonged as a Justice League episode. The threat wasn't big enough. Even facing off against the Legion of Doom, ultimately they were fighting just kind of run-of-the-mill thugs. Their biggest threat was a bag of rocks. I know I keep bringing that up, but that's so ridiculous. And a bomb in a suitcase placed in the Watchtower. They finally infiltrate the Watchtower, which, by the way, I don't know apparently all they need is a garage door opener. They finally infiltrate that, and their best plan that Lex could come up with was hide a suitcase with a bomb in it behind a desk or something. These are superheroes. They can fly, they can see through walls, they can run super fast. Like, this is not a huge threat.
I told you.
Shut up.
So that was kind of a weak plot that ultimately, and again, we dropped the whole plot of Lex dying.
This is your fault. All of it.
I think they're setting up that he's going to need the super suit more later on, but we're missing this whole emotional element. Superman saves Lex in the beginning, and so it's like they set up these kind of really neat plots and then they fell by the wayside. I do have it just below Fury, which I think is very similar to this episode, but they have a lot more kind of an interesting setup to the story versus this one. But I do have it beating out Secret Origins, the original episode, which again I think is just a setup for this series and was, they had a lot of exposition that they had to get through in that episode. But that's where it ranks so far on my list of favorite episodes of Justice League. So my question for you is, what could they have done to set up the Legion of Doom better? Could they have different villains in there? Do you think that having more of the kind of round table discussions and them working together to set up a plot would have helped? Do you think that having them in the big eye that goes into the swamp would have helped? What do you think could have helped this Justice League face off against Doom? Or Do you think it worked well? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, please click the like button and hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm trying my best to get back on a regular release schedule. It is very challenging with everything that's going on, but I'm trying my best, I promise you. So thank you for your patience with that. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode when we're talking about A Night of Shadows. Stay tuned.